That was the shot heard around the world, basically, or heard amongst a significant number of people, cypherpunks and whatnot. And Jameson Lopp tweeted something interesting. He said that it's interesting to read the conversation leading up to the publication of this, and you hear the same FUD back then that you hear today, recycled over and over and over again. So some of the questions have just been always with us from the very, very beginning, and none of that has ever really amounted to anything in terms of overcoming what we now know to be this Bitcoin revolution. Banks like Goldman Sachs, that was an investment bank at the time, was facing insolvency.
Yep.
So they lobbied the government to allow them to change their charter and become a regular commercial bank overnight.
Yes.
And therefore eligible for bailout money. And that was just one of the many, many injustices that were done by Tim Geithner and Hank Paulson and Ben Bernanke, really just rewriting all financial regulations overnight and strong-arming Congress to get these things through and set the stage for the current global crisis that we're having now. Had the markets been allowed to cleanse out all the bad actors and all the fraud back in 2008, we would have set the stage for a much more robust and meaningful rebound at some point. But instead, the United States chose to, and the world, to pick the high time preference of instant gratification of simply printing up to 20 trillion fresh treasury bills, bailing out all the creditors. First time in history, really, that's been done. Usually the debtors get bailed out. And what do? They went out there and they leveraged their balance sheets 10 times greater than they were before the 2008 crash. And now here we are in 2021, and you've got this global financial crisis starting to really manifest itself once again, direct result of the 2008 reaction. The sales of Bitcoin early by the early pioneers. Well, I think one of the interesting parts of the Bitcoin history is that many, if not most, of the early pioneers really didn't understand Bitcoin and what the implications of Bitcoin, even having worked on Bitcoin. And Jeff Garzik is someone who went on to get involved in some other projects, some side projects. I think he's involved. Well, I know he's been involved in some side projects. That, again, there was this idea that there was room for these altcoins, etc. And we saw that happen quite frequently. And it turns out that Bitcoin had some tricks up its sleeve. And there was a lot more to be revealed in terms of what the potential was. Was it a trick or was it part of the design? So in nature, the way seeds, for example, get dispersed is by covering themselves with something edible, and then an animal eats that and walks away, and then it comes out in the fecal matter, comes out in the waste that from the animal, and then it ends up becoming, dispersing that seed, and the species grows. I think I read recently, this is interesting, for avocados, which are a fruit technically, and they're an ancient type of vegetation, and the reason avocado seeds are so big, it has to do with the fact that a long time ago the animals themselves were a lot bigger. I may have gotten that wrong, but nevertheless, was it a trick or was it part of the design? And who's really designing this? Was it an invention or a discovery? This would kind of point to Bitcoin as a discovery and less of an invention, because the people who, if they were inventing it, you would think they would know what they invented, but a lot of them didn't. I think it was more of a discovery, where if you put this with this with this with this, we've discovered essentially this digital, absolutely scarce synthetic commodity, and a lot of people didn't understand what they discovered. And this happens all the time in science too, where scientists will discover things and they're not sure, what it actually is, what it does, but they discovered it.
True.
Whereas with inventions, it's very clearly the path toward use cases from the point of view of the inventor. Thomas Edison had a goal. He wanted to create artificial light, and he invented the light bulb. But the Bitcoin was discovered by engineers, computer engineers, and many of them didn't understand what it was that they discovered. But the replicability and the observation of Bitcoin being absolutely scarce as a discovery and for the first time, it's interesting because it's counterintuitive in a lot of ways. It's absolutely scarce, but you can move it around the internet in a way that it's an infinite number of times, you could say. So here's an absolutely scarce digital synthetic commodity, but you can move it an infinite number of times through the internet, and which is based on replicability, right? The internet's based on copy, right? Emails, you can make 1,000 copies of an email. It doesn't degrade the fidelity of that email. And so the entire internet is based on replicability. And yet this is an absolutely scarce digital commodity without replicability that can be sent through the internet. So there's that side of it. And then when you think about something that's irreplicable, you say, hey, the planet Saturn, I can't replicate that. It's exactly where it is in cosmos. I can't replicate it, really, and it wouldn't be Saturn. Saturn is only Saturn. But that's an object. There's only one object. It's absolutely scarce. It's in the solar system. Can I move it around the internet and use it as absolute value? No, I can't, right? It doesn't work. It's a digital, absolutely scarce synthetic commodity. So it's like, to your point about whether it's a particle, whether it's a wave, is it quantum, is it on the quantum physical, right? It does start to bleed into all of these types of scientific and philosophical conversations about, it opens up many things, right? So obviously, Canute and others, Robert Breedlove and others, they trigger a philosophical question and discovery about all of this, because it does kind of bleed into many different ideas and many different disciplines. So you don't really know. You can't determine whether the act of observation is influencing what you're observing. And there's a lot of feedback mechanisms that go in that as well. And that's getting back to that quantum level and quantum physics for sure. And so Bitcoin exhibits characteristics that one would normally ascribe to quantum physics, but it's used as money. And what is money, right? So then what is money is obviously predates physics as a field of intellectual discovery, inquiry. And so these things are intersecting at this very interesting point. And as we point out, in 2008, it was when the fiat money actually crashed. I've said that in 2008, the global economy died.
Yes.
We just haven't buried it yet.
Yeah.
So here we are 12, 13 years later, and the corpse is still walking around, and they're still trying to pump it full of fiat formaldehyde to make it look like it's not dead. But it's like Weekend at Bernie's in the fiat world. It died in 2008, and it's just a matter now of burying it.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.